a good place to start is to say, as a foundation, polyvagal theory and using its principles in practice are about creating safety. Safety is our most foundational human need. And it's surprising how few people feel truly safe. And I think it has the ability to transform our relationship with our patients, with our partners, within our families and friends, if we can create a place of safety. And I think a lot of people talk about safe space, but few actually really know the fundamentals of how to do it.
Have you ever felt like your body isn't a safe place to live? Like no matter what you try, stretching, breathing, supplements, or even sheer willpower, your system has a tendency of staying tensed, guarded, or even in pain. If you've been living feeling like your body is stuck in survival mode, then today's episode is going to meet you with where you are. What you're feeling is not a failure. It's your nervous system trying to protect you. I'm Dr. Mary, your host of Energy Medicine, a seasoned chiropractor, medical intuitive, and energy medicine practitioner. And today we're joined by somebody truly extraordinary, Dr. Monique Andrews, whose work sits at the powerful intersection between brain science and chiropractic care. Today's episode is titled Nervous System Reset. Dr. Mo holds advanced degrees in neuroscience, chiropractic, and natural medicine, and she is renowned for translating complexities of brain function into practical, evidence-informed applications that you can truly feel. Her expertise in neuroregulation and applied polyvagal theory places her at the forefront of advancing chiropractic as the cornerstone of nervous system healing and human resilience. She brings a rare blend of research clarity, clinical wisdom, and embodied teaching that transforms how we understand pain, safety, and healing. If you're ready to understand what your body responds to and why it does, and why and how to create true regulation from within, then you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Your physiology is not your fault. That your feeling of being stuck is a really common space to be in. And there are a number of factors beyond the level of conscious awareness that are running that narrative, right? So we feel something in our body and we have this tendency to make up a story about it. So the first thing I want people to know is the way you're feeling is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Interesting. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, so if we look at the basic principle of polyvagal theory, the reason why Stephen Porges created it was to explain why we behave the way that we do in response to our environment. Like, why do we jump when we hear the sound of a car backfiring? Well, that's not a conscious decision. Literally, by the time you've heard the sound and jumped, it's only then that you realize you've already jumped by the time you realize what's happened. And there's a very typical neurological sequence of events in response to everything that we encounter in life, especially stressful things. So for example, let me take the example of the car backfiring. So the first thing that happens is your amygdala gets set on high alert, right? That's the fear response center in your brain. And that triggers a whole series of reactions in your body from the sympathetic nervous system charging up, right? So we have activation of the nervous system that creates a change in physiology, which creates the stream of chemicals and hormones flooding for the sympathetics to activate the body. That creates a behavior. You jump. And then the last thing that happens is you make up a story about it. And so I say everything in life is like that. And our tendency as humans, because we have these massive prefrontal cortices, is to always make up a story for what's happened. And in reality, everything has happened by the time the narrative gets added. And what if you could learn to listen to your body and also learn to change the narrative? I think you would find that your lived experience is radically transformed.
So true, but the startle reflex happens so fast. Like we go on autopilot, we don't even have a chance to consciously make that decision. Okay, body, what are you trying to tell me before you go into that instinctual motion? So it's so fast.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about changing the initial response. I'm not talking about changing our tendency to jump to the sound of a car backfiring. That is a natural survival mechanism. We want that to happen. It's good. But what we want to perhaps shift is our ability to go, instead of being like, oh gosh, why did I jump? Or letting that rev in our system continue on without a discharge, right? What if we just were like curious, or number one, thankful? Thanks for taking care of me and trying to remove me from danger. And it's okay. We're okay now. We're safe. And you can actually we can train our own nervous systems to do that, to just pay attention, track what's happened, and let go. And that's where we very often don't as humans. We never get to that third phase of the discharge cycle.
Where we can shake it off like the animals do, right?
Exactly, because whenever we have a stressful event or a traumatic experience, we're supposed to go through 3 stages, right? And this is called the activation cycle. So the first thing is we get activated, the amygdala, gets fired up, and then we mobilize, right? The amygdala sends signals to the sympathetic nervous system. We do something. That's the second step. The third step is discharge, shake it off. Well, as humans, especially over the last 5 years or so, there's a very high level of activation and mobilization and very little discharge. We're not getting to that third essential phase of that cycle. And so how do we now train ourselves to do that? What can we do? Are there practices? Are there exercises that we can do? And that's some of the things that I teach practitioners in applied polyvagal.
Yeah. So what do you recommend? I mean, I jokingly said like animals where we just kind of shake it on off. Can we recommend that people are doing some kind of dance, a movement, yoga, running? What kind of exercise are you recommending for people to
there's all sorts
get
of
to
things.
that third phase?
There are many things. I mean, you could literally shake it off, like shake your body like a dog would in a park after a dog fight. But I think in addition to things like that, when you're in a moment, we want to train, we want to prepare, we want to repair the leaky roof before it rains, right? So we want to be practicing, have a daily practice, some fundamental principles that are helping to regulate the nervous system so that when we do get into moments of alarm, it's very easy to just be like, whoa, and it goes. I don't think you're just going to shake it off whenever you feel stressed out and it's going to work very well without having that consistent practice, right? We know from principles of neuroplasticity, it takes frequent repeated exposure to practice. And so there's no magic bullet. You have to practice.
Both of us are seasoned chiropractors, and you've been noted to say, adjust the spine and you change the brain. Change someone's brain and you change their life. Now, this is more than just a philosophical viewpoint. I know that with your neuroscience background, you come from a scientific perspective when you make this statement. So, how do you respond to this when somebody thinks that a chiropractor is just moving bones, a subluxation, a bone out of alignment, where we all know we have enough life experience in clinical practice to know that the subluxation is more than just a joint problem. It's a neurological problem. So can you talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I think, there has been more research in the last 2 decades than there's been in a whole lifetime of chiropractic. And even though we're really still in our infancy in chiropractic neuroscience, we know beyond a doubt that when you adjust the spine, you change the brain. We have studies in EEG, functional MRI, PET scan studies, all sorts of studies now that show changes in different areas of the brain in response to the adjustment. And what's really unique is some of those are areas that we have conscious awareness of, like the prefrontal cortex. And so when I say when you change the brain, you change someone's life, it's because we're not just looking at, changes to the cerebellum or other subcortical structures. We're literally changing that part of the brain that is responsible for our conscious perception of ourself, right? Our seat of consciousness is in the prefrontal cortex, supposedly. And so when we're adjusting you, it's not just a function of a musculoskeletal issue. And that's why, honestly, that's how most people end up in a chiropractic office. They have back or neck pain. 90% of visits to chiropractors are for back or neck pain. And, who's going to turn them away? But our job, I think, as an evidence-informed chiropractor is then to teach them what we now know through the research. And that's what I spend most of my time doing now, is translating complex brain science to practical evidence-informed chiropractors and other embodied practitioners who want to learn, look, how can I take everything that's happening in the research and apply that in practice and use it to educate my patients? And that's where I spend most of my time. I get invited to speak all over the world, and that's what they want me to talk about. Teach us about the latest science and tell us how to communicate it and use it clinically in practice.
Yeah, okay. So this is a beautiful place this is something to talk about and to navigate. So when we adjust the upper cervical spine, we know that we're doing huge transformations neurologically within our system. We know that the brain fires differently. We know that the immune system is going to respond differently. And we also know that the vagus nerve is going to change. So we know this scientifically. And so how are you explaining that complex system to a patient?
Yeah, well, what I would say, and I always would form this in the form of a question, I would say, do you know what controls your body? And they might be taken aback, but many of them will say, well, I guess your brain, right? And I'll say, yep, you're absolutely right. Your brain controls every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. And when we adjust your spine, we're actually changing how your brain functions in a really positive way. That's going to affect all the other systems. Unlike medicine, which kind of breaks you up into pieces and addresses each part individually, chiropractors are integrative. We look at the body as a whole, and there's no way that you can impact one system like the nervous system without impacting the other systems. Now, if you want to talk about vagus, that's where I get really excited, right? Because people are like, well, how does the adjustment impact the vagus nerve? Well, what's really cool is the area where the vagus is most accessible to human touch, right? Via the skin, what we call transcutaneous, is right here, in and around the ear and just in that upper cervical area. And studies show that you can stimulate the vagus transcutaneously through the skin in this area and create many, many changes. One of which is really critical, which is it has an anti-inflammatory effect. And there's literally a part of the neurophysiology of the vagus that's called the cholinergic anti-inflammatory loop. And there's a reflex. And so this is, a small bit of the research that's available. Not chiropractic and vagus research. We don't have a lot in that regard yet outside of heart rate variability, but we know other research tells us, and they've been doing research for 30 years now in vagus, that it has an incredible impact on many things from sleep to arthritis. It's actually, vagus nerve stimulation is accepted by the FDA as a clinically accessible tool for people with unresponsive epilepsy and depression. The data's there, and more chiropractors are starting to harness that and combining the work that they do with the adjustments with applied polyvagal principles and the exercises.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something because we skimmed over it, and it's such an important component, and that is we're talking about the inflammatory process that happens within the physical body, which is going to be the foundation for many of our disease processes and also the pain syndrome that oftentimes drive patients into our office. So we know that the human body, is an amazing machine that can run on its own, and if given the proper influence, can do some magical things. But what you're suggesting, if I'm hearing you correctly, Dr. Mo, is that you're talking about the human body's ability to self-regulate and to take that information into various different biochemical pathways, neurological pathways, immune system enhancement, all those ways that the body can heal itself. And that's so critical. And I didn't want the listeners to miss that part, because it's so, when you wrap your head around that, that's where the magic really begins.
Yeah, that's a foundational principle within chiropractic, that we are self-healing organisms with the ability to self-maintain, self-organize, self-heal. And that's really the essence of the idea that, nature needs no help, just no interference. So how can we remove any impedance to realizing our fullest potential? And then I'm not saying chiropractic is the only thing that people need, and certainly we all need different things in our lives, but chiropractic is a fundamental tool that we can use to really elevate not just our lived experience, but perhaps the consciousness of all humanity.
So very true. So most of the listeners, and I find myself having this conversation in my practice as well, in that when we're talking about the autonomic nervous system, when we're looking at the branches of sympathetic and parasympathetic, most people don't understand that there is going to be nerve intervention coming into the viscera, to the organs within the body. And if we're sending mixed signals as to speed up or slow down, or we have one organ speeding up and the other one slowing down, it's kind of like you have mixed messages happening internally. So when we use the vagus, can you explain to us a little bit more about how the vagus can create more harmony and homeostasis within the physical body? Bring us back to balance.
Yeah, what's really interesting, what you're describing when we have different organ systems sort of out of sync, out of balance, that's a classic dysregulated nervous system, because the brain should be modulating and regulating to keep everything, humming along at a high level of homeostatic energy. When we have disorganization, when we have dysregulation, because the vagus is so invasive, literally vagus means wanderer. It is the longest cranial nerve coming from the brainstem and going to every cell, organ, and tissue from the neck all the way down to, but just not including the distal third of the colon. So all of our life-giving organs, right? I always say this, you could live without your arms and legs, but you can't live without your organs, right? They have a very specific job. And so the vagus doesn't just send messages to all of these organs. In fact, it takes information from them to the tune of about 80%. I've even heard some people say 90% of the vagus is sensory. So it's all part of that feedback system, right? Where the vagus takes information in, whether it's somatic information or organ information, visceral, and it brings it back to the brain for the brain then to take and process and send back out a signal again through the vagus, right? To effect a change, to bring it back into balance. And I think that the vagus is really like the great regulator of the nervous system. While it doesn't do the regulation itself, it's responsible for all the information going back to the brain and then back out again. It's beautiful.
It is. And so most of us are conditioned to think, oh yes, everything starts from the brain and then it goes down through the spine and out to the body. So you're suggesting that 80% of the information from the vagus is coming from the body into the central nervous system, back up into the brain. And so really, the whole idea that the body, the knowledge of the human body and the wisdom that the body contains supersedes or overrides some of the brain patterns.
Well, if you didn't have your body, the brain wouldn't have a job. Essentially, here's what I think. The brain has one job, and that is to respond to its environment. 80% of that message is coming via the vagus. If there was no signal, what would be the brain's job? I mean, it's part of the integrated system, but if it weren't for the vagus sending those signals back, we wouldn't have an integrated biological system whereby everything was in a state of balance. And it's why when people are subluxated, when those signals get distorted, that we start to see dysregulation, that imbalance happening. So it's really critical that all of those signals are firing, whether they're going up or going down.
Okay, so now we've painted kind of a complex picture for the listeners. We know that the vagus nerve, one of the longest nerves within the body, has various different branches, and from those branches there's more branches, and that there's very few organs or few organ systems that are not innervated by the vagus itself. So with that kind of complexity, can you provide us with some simple practical ways to bring balance back into the vagus, something that we can do at home, something that we can do in our car, something that we can do without possibly people even noticing what we're doing?
Yeah, sure. There's 2 exercises that are very simple that would be applicable for anybody to use. So no contraindication to either one of those. The first is called the basic exercise, and literally you interlace your fingers and put them behind your head, sort of in your upper neck and your lower part of your skull. And then what you do is you turn your eyes, without turning your head, you turn your eyes to one side. So just looking to the left with your eyes only. And you do that, you hold it until you have a physiological sigh. Now, what's a physiological sigh? It's when you have an in-breath and then almost like a little another one on top of it. And so you hold that. Once you have the physiological sigh to the left or right, whichever side you started on, then you look to the other side, again, eyes only. And again, you wait for that physiological sigh. And what that does, the position of itself with the eyes turning, that creates traction on the vagus and stimulates it. And when you stimulate the vagus, you're increasing vagal inputs. That's literally an internal vagal stretch that helps to stimulate it and foster high vagal tone. That's exercise number one, the basic exercise. The second one is a breathing exercise. And you could be doing this one anywhere. You could be doing it right now while you're listening to me. And essentially what you do is you inhale for 4 seconds, then you hold for 7, and then you exhale for 8. It's called the 4-7-8 breath. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Now it does a couple of different things. That holding of the breath functions to traction the vagus again, because you're increasing intra-abdominal pressure and intrathorax pressure. And then the breathing itself, anytime we're breathing, there's a normal respiratory sinus rhythm. And on the breath out, that actually elevates parasympathetic tone and decreases sympathetic. It switches. So when you're breathing in, it elevates sympathetic tone. And so by reducing the inhalation to only half the length of the exhalation, you're actually going to be in parasympathetic for twice as long. And that's really going to help to bring up that vagal tone. I mean, literally, you're bringing up parasympathetics because you're stimulating the vagus through this very simple breath. And I would teach everybody in my practice would learn these. And, people in the reception, the perfect day is when you come out in the reception and everybody's sitting like this, because that they're basically prepping their nervous system to get their adjustment. And in fact, we looked at it very clearly. People that are doing the exercises every day, their body accepts the adjustment more easily. They hold their adjustments for longer. They're happier when they're on your table. Like, it radically changes not just like their experience, but your experience too as a practitioner, because you're working with a much more elevated patient base. And that's, I think, far more rewarding than a back and neck pain only approach.
That's so very true. And I have to share with you and the listeners that I have a personal experience with the breath that Dr. Mo was talking about, the inhalation for 4, the hold for 7, exhalation for 8. And I was instructed to hold, at the bottom of the exhalation, right? Which we now know is what is stimulating and activating the parasympathetic division. When I was holding after that exhalation for however long the count was, I was like, this is so much harder to hold that hold at the bottom of the exhalation versus the inhalation. And then once I really wrapped my head around the science behind it, I'm like, I am going to master this breath because I'm going to tonify my vagus. So listeners, when you try this at home, if you bump into challenges, it's real. So
I think also a lot of people, when you do the basic exercise, people will be like, I never got to the inhalation. And so I just want to encourage anybody listening, if you're trying it and it's your first time, it might take a couple of minutes, right? And just keep practicing. Again, right? Frequent and repeated exposures is what we need to create neuroplastic change.
Yeah, and I've often heard people say, well, when I do that exercise with the eyes, I sigh. I find myself sighing or yawning, or maybe
that's what's supposed to happen.
Exactly. Or it may be even emotion surfaces. So know that if that's happening to you, know that you're on the right track. You're not doing anything wrong. That's what we're looking to have happen. So I love this conversation, Dr. Mo. You're just a wealth of information. I know that you're in high demand throughout the entire United States. So to know that you're spending time one-on-one with us today, I just feel really super honored. So listeners, I know that you have choices as to how you spend your time as well. So I just want to express gratitude to all of you that are listening. Don't forget the easy takeaway exercises that Dr. Mo talked about, the hands behind the head and deviating the eyeballs one way or another, and wait for that bodily response. And then I also want to encourage you to try the breath as well. So Dr. Mo, a tremendous amount of gratitude to you and your wisdom and your shared life experiences. And listeners, until next time, take good care of yourself, stay connected to your body, and remember, healing happens when we listen. There's no doubt that you're finding value in the knowledge and the wisdom that Dr. Mo was sharing with us today. Imagine having more conversations like this with practitioners and leaders within the industry who are reshaping how we understand healing, regulation, and the human body. This is exactly what I intend to provide for you on a weekly basis with hosting the podcast Energy Medicine. If you want to keep on learning, growing, and expanding your energy medicine toolbox kit, this is what I need from you. Like this video, subscribe to the Energy Medicine channel, and last but not least, hit the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. It only takes a minute and it makes a huge difference, not for me, but for the entire community. Your engagement helps me attract more dynamic practitioners like Dr. Mo, people with deep experience, clinical wisdom, and a passion for elevating the conversation around nervous system healing. So if this episode is resonating with you, take a second right now and to subscribe and to stay connected.